Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Zan Markin. I'm a developer advocate at CircleCI, and you have just joined the webinar titled Accelerate Cloud Adoption with CircleCI and Altostra's no-code infrastructure platform. I'm joined here today with Yossi from Altostra.
Hey, everyone.
And before we begin, this is a Zoom webinar. We're recording it. If you have any questions, we will be answering them at the end of the webinar. Please use the Q&A feature of Zoom to ask your questions, and we'll get to them after the end. Without further ado, let's begin. So today we'll be covering a few things. First off, we'll begin by looking at CircleCI and what CI/CD is to give you a little bit of context. Then we'll move on to the Altostra part. They have been kind enough to create a CircleCI orb for us, so we'll be talking about those as well. Yossi will give you a little bit of an overview of the Altostra, the company, and the final part is going to be the demo, which is going to show you how everything kind of ties together with Altostra and CircleCI. And as I said, we'll finish with the Q&A session, answering any questions that you might have. So let's crack on. So CircleCI, we're a company on a mission to make it as easy and quick as possible for folks to go from idea to delivery. We do that in the current day and age, usually with software and our CI/CD platform. As a company, we've been around for almost 10 years, and we are actually almost 500 employees right now across the whole world. And we help teams all around the world build better software. And we have a lot of really awesome customers and partners. And our platform is, I would say it's so widely used that I'd be willing to bet that pretty much everyone watching this has used at some point today a piece of software that has been built or deployed using CircleCI's platform. So we really are everywhere, from open source projects to massive companies that rely on us. So what is CI/CD and where does it fit in the software delivery lifecycle? So if you think about the software delivery lifecycle as this flow from creating the code all the way to running the code and where it actually reaches the customers in the form of built, shipped software, we sit in the middle. So as developers, we collaborate on source code repositories. We create commits, we push features, we push branches, we merge them, any workflow that you usually work with. And that is then picked up by a CI/CD platform. CI/CD obviously stands for continuous integration and continuous delivery. That is triggered by a change in the code. So let's say a commit or a pull request, which then runs a set of scripts that you predefine, which run your build, run test, unit test, integration test, functional tests, any type of test or verifications that you really want, and then offloads that to your deployment platform, whether that's Kubernetes, whether that's some kind of serverless infrastructure, or anything in between, all the way to mobile applications being deployed to application stores. Now, let me quickly show you what I'm talking about with a bit more specifics. So there's two parts to CircleCI. First one is the configuration file, which actually sits within your repository. So if this is a repository, you have this .circleci folder, and in it you have a config.yaml file, which is where you define everything. So in this file, you have a few top level things such as jobs, workflows, and orbs. We will touch on orbs a bit later, but jobs, you can think about them as collection of steps that execute in a specific environment. Workflows are how we organize those jobs in an order. So whether they're run sequentially, depending on one after the other, or in parallel, requiring something else, or maybe you can script that you want to run a job only when a commit hits the master branch and not on any other feature branches. You specify that in a workflow. Orbs are we'll talk about orbs later, but they give you some kind of reusable snippets that you can easily copy and paste. For example, this Docker orb gives you handy little commands like Docker push. The other part of CircleCI is the dashboard, which kind of ties everything together, and you can see all of your pipelines and workflows that have been run and are running. So, for example, for this particular project, we have a bunch of workflows. So the workflow that I was showing you earlier is called build and deploy, and you can see it actually illustrated here in this kind of graphic representation of what you saw earlier. And if something breaks, you see whether a test has broken or some other part of the pipeline has terminated or been successful. That's kind of a little bit of an overview of what CircleCI is, and so that you have a bit of an idea of what we're talking about. Now let's talk about orbs. I'd alluded to them earlier. Essentially, they are one of the ways we make going from committed code to deployed app more easily. That's through the use of orbs. Orbs are a set of reusable packaged configurations that you can pull in from a central repository into your configuration, so you don't have to write a bunch of commands from scratch each time you are trying to do common things like build a Docker image or run a Node.js test, for example. And they're essentially just packaged YAML that encapsulates that. You can find a bunch of these orbs in the CircleCI Developer Hub, which is at circleci.com/developer. If you go to orbs, you have a whole listing of them. Today, we'll be looking at the Altostra orb, but this is just to give you a little bit of context. What you usually find in those orbs is everything from jobs themselves to commands and executors, which are like built environments that jobs are executed in. And yeah, with that, I will hand off to Yossi, who will be talking about Altostra and how that works and integrates. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. Thank you then for the introduction. Hi. Let's see, I can hear. Yep. I'm stealing your share. Okay, so hi, everyone. I'm Yossi from Altostra. I'm the chief architect here. And this is me getting my second vaccination shot a few days ago. So hopefully in a few days, I'll be COVID-free, COVID protected, maybe. And what we're going to do here today is basically show you how you can build and deploy serverless and cloud infrastructure faster using Altostra and CircleCI. And we're going to do it using a demo. Now, before we begin, just a couple of words about Altostra, if you're not familiar with us. We were established 2 years ago, and basically what we desire to do is accelerate and simplify cloud adoption. And we're doing this by creating really no-code infrastructure for developers and companies. So basically what we want is that the promise of just write code that we were all promised when we switched to serverless will be really just write code and not just write code and a lot of YAMLs and config policies and IAM roles. Okay, so what are we going to see in this specific demo? We're going to try to take it, as Dan mentioned earlier, from idea to delivery as fast as possible, hopefully in less than 15 minutes. Bear with me. So first of all, we're going to get a new feature request, and we're going to talk about the product that we currently have. Then we're going to see what we have currently deployed on the Altostra web console, see around that a bit, develop code locally, actually do this. I'll copy paste the code, you won't have to stay long. Then we'll see how we integrate it with CircleCI to deploy to test and deploy automatically on environments. And if everything works correctly, deploy it to production. Okay, so also, if you have any questions, I can see them, but Jan can. So write them down, and the moment we get a minute, and in the Q&A, we'll answer all of them. So let's see what our product is and what we were required to do. So this is the Altostra web console. This is the command console, basically. You can see that I have 3 environments and 1 project and so deployments. And let's go to our project. This is our project, the CircleCI demo. And this is the brief we got from the customer. Our customer is one of Israel's health providers, and they are basically responsible to vaccinate everyone in Israel. There are 5 of these, and one of our customer is one of them. Currently, what their system has is the moment a patient gets vaccinated, a post request is sent to their API gateway. This is the post request, and it contains the user ID. In Israel, everybody do have a user ID. It's very nice. The dose is the first or the second one, the dosage of the vaccination, when was it done, the batch ID, if something ever goes wrong, and is it Pfizer or Oxford or any other producer. So this is their system. The moment a patient gets vaccinated, a post request is being sent to the API gateway. This message is being verified and authenticated in the messages passer Lambda. And once it's verified and validated, it is passed on to a messaging bus that basically enables them to work in an event-driven architecture with several microservices. So currently they have 3 microservices. One of them is the inventory updater, and it works with DynamoDB. But basically, when you get the first vaccine, they need to remember to allocate a second dosage for you, so you get it within 21 days. Otherwise, the vaccine won't be as helpful. The second microservice is the Ministry of Health notifier. Every time they vaccinate a patient, they need to notify the Ministry of Health, so the Ministry of Health can keep track of what's going on with the population. And last but not least, it's the patient record updater, which basically updates the medical record of the patient under their care. So this is their current system. This is what they have. Let's test it. As you can see here on the left, this system is deployed to an environment called dev. It's located in US East 1 in AWS. And the current running image is main 63. It was deployed yesterday. Let's see that it's working. Let's send our post request. Okay, seems like it's going on correctly. Let's see that all our logs are working. Okay, so we were processing the vaccination request, we authenticated it, validated it, updated the medical record, saved it, and notified the Ministry of Health. Amazing, everything works. Okay, so what do you want us to do? Basically, what we were requested to build is another feature. We want that anytime somebody gets vaccinated, this patient will immediately have a scheduled appointment for the second vaccination. So it needs to happen after 21 days and no later than 25 days. So that's what we were requested to do. Let's switch to our editor so we can actually build the code. Okay, this is Visual Code, if anybody is not familiar with it. What I'm running now is basically just the Altostra plugin. And as you can see, this architecture is the same one as we saw earlier in the web console. This is the current architecture of our project, and we want to have a new feature. So let's open a new branch, because that's the way you do it. And let's pick a branch called second appointment, actually. Okay, so in this case, we're definitely going to need a Lambda. So let's just add a Lambda and call it second vaccination. Excuse me for any type errors. Okay, and we're going to use Node to use it. So this is our Lambda. Now, basically, we can do 2 things. We can either add a route to the API gateway, or we can connect this Lambda directly to the messaging bus to be triggered anytime somebody gets vaccinated. So if we would like to add it to be basically event-driven, all we have to do is click on the messaging bus, connect it to the Lambda, and we can even say we only want to filter on events where the dose is first dose, for example. Now, in this case, I want to show you how we do it with the route because it's easier to show and more gratifying. So I'll just delete this connection and I'll just add a new route over here. So let's go to the API gateway. And these are the endpoints. And I want to have a post because we need to get the user ID and other stuff. And OK, this is the route we're going to use. So now I'm just connecting the schedule next dose route to my new Lambda. And now all we need to do is basically add the code. So let's do that. Now the code is not going to be very interesting. So just bear with me for a second. Basically what happens here is that this Lambda, the moment somebody sends a request to this Lambda, we have an authentication function, a validation, and the next thing we do is just get the next dosage date and appointment for the client and send it back. That's it. Okay, so this is the code. Very nice. Now let's say I tested everything and it works perfectly and I want to add it, commit it, and push it. Let's push it to my origin. And basically, from the moment I push, that's where the CircleCI and CI/CD integration starts. So usually what I want to happen is that whenever I push something to any branch, I want to test it immediately. So let's go to our config file that Zen showed us earlier. So this is the config file. I close this one. Yeah, I want to save it. Let's see that there's no changes. Okay. Okay, so this is the CircleCI config, and as Dan mentioned, we have the workflow, and our workflow here contains basically two jobs. This is the node test, because we want to run the test every time we push to every bench. And this second job, which we'll talk about in a minute, and you can see it only runs when it's pushed to either master or main. Okay, so I have a new branch, I pushed it. What we expect to happen is that CircleCI automatically ran the test. So now let's go to our CircleCI and see, hopefully that it worked. And these are our pipelines. And 8 seconds ago, we had the second appointment and node test ran completely. Amazing. So now that I know that basically my deployment runs successfully and all the tests are passed, I would like someone, namely Zen this time, to approve my PR and merge it to master so we can deploy it. So let's create a new pull request. Okay, and I'll mark Zen here. Yep. Okay. Now if Zen will be if Zen will be so kind as to approve my pull request.
Working on it. Okay. Bear with me 1 second. Okay. Okay, I can see it, pull request. Just and approve.
Okay, so, all right, amazing. Was it approved? Let's see. Let's refresh it. GitHub.
Wait, it should.
It should be approved.
It should be approved.
Okay, so then approved it by verbally. We can continue on. So let's merge our pull request to our master. In this case, main. Sorry. Okay, so we got everything was merged. So now I had something in development. I developed a new feature. I committed it. I pushed it. All the tests passed, and then took a look and said, okay, I approve this message. And now it's in main. What we expect now to happen is, let's go to CircleCI and see that everything is running. Okay, so the test passed, and as you can see, now the next step is running. So what's in the next step? What's in the next step is where Altostra comes in, basically. Altostra means, as the moment the build was successful and the test was successful, what we would like to do is basically package this entire version and deploy it automatically to our dev environment. So how do we do that? We have the dev environment, as we've seen earlier in the web console. And here we use the Altostra orb, which I'll show you in a minute where you can find it. And what the Altostra orb does here is, first of all, it sets up. So basically, you need to connect your CircleCI account to your Altostra account so you can operate within Altostra. And to do that, you use an API token, which I'll show you in a minute where you can find it. And the next step, it basically pushes the image to your Altostra repository. And an image is basically just your code and your infrastructure wrapped into one file. And you can think about it almost like a Docker image. Once you have that image at Altostra repository, it's hosted on your account and it can be deployed to each environment you want, and it can be deployed to the same environment several times. And I'll show you how in a minute. So once that happens and the test runs smoothly, we automatically deploy it to dev. Okay, so let's go see our CircleCI. And apparently in CircleCI, okay, we finished the deployment step. Let's go to our web console and see what's up in Altostra. I'll refresh the page. Okay, and now we can see that our dev is currently being deployed. This is the version that is still there. It's the old version. And now we're waiting for the deployment of Altostra. Now, in this case, I want to show you how you can get the API token so you can connect your CircleCI and Altostra accounts. And all you have to do is just go to your own team. In this case, this is my personal account. This is my demo account, which we're working on right now. And this is my Altostra account, because we use our own product to deploy our own product. So if something bad happens, it happens to us first, which is nice. So we just go to the settings, select access tokens, and you can create a new one. So let's create one called sample1. Create. Okay, copy it. And all you need to do now is basically just add it to the CircleCI context. And I'll show you in a minute where it is. And maybe if somebody is not familiar with it, then can extend on it later. So I'm going to delete this one because I'm not planning to use it anytime soon. Okay, so we have the API token, and let's see what's going on in our project. Was it deployed yet? Yep, as you can see, our project was deployed, and you can see now we have the new architecture here, and we know that this version is what is deployed to dev. So let's go and see that our dev version actually works. This was the first request, and now we have a new one. It's called the next dose scheduler, and let's trigger it. Okay. So the next dosage will be at March 18 on Thursday. Great, very nice. We have a full functioning feature in dev. Now, basically, what we would like to do usually is to promote it to production, because we said, okay, I developed it, I tested it locally, I deployed it to dev. I now want to try running integration test or canary test, whichever test you're doing it yourself. In this case, we did a manual test, and we want to promote this version to production. So in order to do this, first of all, we need to have a production. So you can see I already made our production environment, but let's go see it. So our production environment is located also in US East 1 in AWS. And you can see that these are the parameters that the app will use. So these parameters basically are the same ones, the variables are the same one as in dev, but naturally with different values. So in this case, the host name will be vaccines in production. But if we go and see our dev version, the host name is vaccine dev. Okay, so we have this. Let's deploy to production. We want to have a new instance. What is an instance? An instance is basically a deployment of your image to an environment. And that means that you can have multiple deployments of different images to the same environment. So if several developers, for example, are working on different branches of the same application, they can each have their own instance deployed in dev using the same database, using the same parameters, but living in parallel, which is very nice for the dev team. So we'll have a new instance on production. We call it prod, and we want to have the latest image of all our images, and we want to have it in production. So deploy. Okay, so we're deploying to production. Just wanted to show you that basically everything you can do in the web console, you can also do in the CLI. So if I want to see all the images of this current application, I can do this. Okay, so as you can see, there are many, many versions. If I want to see what is deployed and where, we can use the Alto deployments. And we can see that one is deployed in dev. This is the version deployed over there and currently deployed, and production is still not available because it's in deploying status. If you want to automate any process using the CLI and you need something, you can just run this with a -JSON flag, and then you'll get it in like an easier format for whatever you want to do. Let's see what's happening with production. Okay, so we're still waiting on our production environment. I just want to show you, people asked me before, so I'm usually getting over this when we have a minute. Where does the infrastructure happen? So we've added this, we added the Lambda and we added a connection. Where is it stored? So it's not something you should touch, and basically don't touch it. We have under the .altostra folder, you can see the project JSON file, which is basically kind of a superset of what happens when you write CloudFormation YAMLs. So this is our own proprietary format, and we use it to define all the infrastructure. And this one is being compiled later to CloudFormation. So basically, you can try to just compile it and see what happens. And we can see this over here. Let's try to do build, and I want to do it for dev. And nope. Okay. Okay. I'll show it to you in a minute. Okay, so one other thing that I wanted to show you while we're waiting for production to go up is our configuration of logs. So basically, okay, production was just deployed, so I'll show it to you in a minute. Okay, so now we can see that production has the same version as dev, and it's fully deployed. And now what we probably would like to do is check that production is actually up. So let's go here and replace the dev environment with the prod environment. And let's see that the vaccine domain is indeed vaccines and not vaccines dev. Okay, so let's try this one. Let's see that we didn't break any functionality in the past. Okay, everything works. And let's see that the new capability is working. Okay, amazing. So everything is deployed to production. Amazing. And that's it, we deployed it. So we passed through all these phases. And basically what we just seen is how Altostra basically helps you from the moment you need to design your own feature, your new project, or anything else. So to design your product, deploy it with the help of CircleCI, and basically using CircleCI, what we saw here was very basic. You can add, and maybe Zen can extend on it later. You can add like another steps in the middle that says, okay, if all the after dev was deployed, let's run our canary test, let's run our integration test, and if this step was successful, deploy it automatically to production. Of course, it depends on the way you do things, the way you deploy, the way your company works, but it can be done quite easy. You can also have like optional steps. So what you can do is like have it deployed to dev, have all the tests running, and if they are all successful, send a message to Slack or Discord or whichever application you'd like to use, and get a notification there asking you, would you like to deploy this to production? And if you click on it, it will be deployed to production. So Altostra basically helps you design everything, connect everything to deploy it with CircleCI, and finally monitor it, because you can actually just go there and see what is deployed in every version. I'll show you here. What is deployed basically in any environment. Like, so this environment only contains this project, and on each project, which version is deployed in which environment. That's it. Now back to you, Zen.
Cool. Thank you very much, Yossi. This was great. Shall we look at any questions now?
Yep.
Okay, let me pull them up. Okie dokie. Okay, how do you configure the environments? So I think we've kind of already covered some of that, but maybe you want to expand a little bit on that.
Yeah. Do you see my screen? I have no idea if you see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see it? Okay, cool. So in this case, you want to create a new environment. So basically, we can just do it now. I want to have a new environment. I want to call it testing. And I just connect the accounts I already connected to Altostra. In this case, I connected only one account. And this is the specific region we're currently working on, but in the future we'll add more regions, and you just create a new environment. Now, the nicest thing about the environment creation is that once you have it, we have multiple settings. For example, this connects to the log things I wanted to show you earlier. I connected my logs.io account to my account in Altostra. So basically I can have automated log shipping of everything that is deployed to this environment, deployed to this specific account of logs.io. So whenever I start a new project or anything, I don't need to be concerned about connecting to logging or anything. It automatically happens for everything deployed to this environment. I can also define that this environment, everything in this environment will be deleted like after, I don't know, 2 hours maybe. Because what happened to us usually is that we have people like setting up environments for testing or anything, and then they forget about their existence. And AWS greedily requires you to pay for them for unforeseeable reasons. So basically it can be just deleted like 2 hours, like deleted automatically 2 hours later, a week later, or anything else, which is quite comfortable, at least for the CFO. So that's it. It's as simple as that. Any other question?
Yeah, let me check. How did you set up the logs for the new Lambda to automatically deploy to the logs provider?
Yeah, so that was this one. So just because the environment, I'll show you. Just because my production and dev environments are connected to this specific log shipping,
right,
then it just automatically transforms over there. Which is, I mean, wait, zoom. Okay, I'll just show you the log. So basically everything was deployed automatically without me ever touching it. So this is the new Lambda scheduling next dose appointment for the user, which is like, it's like a synthetic sugar, but it's such a nice synthetic sugar. So
cool. I think we have one more, which is what happens if I need a cloud resource that is not supported in your platform?
Oh, so let's open this one. Okay, so basically we support like the main resources used in serverless. We're constantly adding new ones, but we figured that at some point AWS will be running much faster than us. So we have a special resource called the custom resource that you can just add, and you can just add in here just pure CloudFormation. So if there's something that we still haven't developed, a feature we still haven't tackled on, or just a specific use case that we don't provide for yet, you can just add your own CloudFormation and we'll compile it with everything else. So it's not a perfect solution, but we won't be the one stopping you from using any feature of AWS. I mean, hopefully we'll have it ready for you, but if not, you can just do it yourself.
Wow, that's really cool. That's really cool. Oh, we actually just got one as well. In case of any errors in Altostra deployment, will I be able to see them in CircleCI?
What you'll be able to see, if it fails to deploy, okay, so there are 2 types of problems. If it fails to deploy, then the CLI command will fail and you will see it in CircleCI, but it will just tell you like the command failed, it returned failure. Now, if what happens is that you deployed it and we send the deployment request to AWS and AWS said, okay, fine, I'm deploying, then you will see it inside Altostra, and I can maybe fabricate an error. Just a second. Let me try to do this. Okay, let's see. Main, I'm not a master. Okay, so let's pull, and I'll push something directly to main and see if it works. Let's call it the same thing as other thing. Okay, hopefully I think it will cause it to fail. Let's see. Important. Okay, so basically what I did here is that we have an SNS topic, and SNS topics are unique per region. Now, in this case, I forced it to use the same name of an SNS topic, which means that when trying to deploy to AWS, it will be angry at me and say, you can't do that because there is already one of this, and then it will fail. Now, if you have this failure, maybe I can even find it. Okay. Now it's basically being deployed automatically using CircleCI, and we can see it here. Let's go to our CircleCI, so it's running. But maybe I can show it to you in the activity log, right? I don't remember if we had one. Did it fail? Yes, it definitely failed sometime. Activity. Load more. No, I probably deleted it. This is dev activity. Nah, didn't fail. So basically, you will be able to see it in the activity. If it's something failed in CircleCI, you will see it in CircleCI. And if it fails in Altostra, you will see it where it says deployed here, it will say failure. And you have a little arrow it can open, and then it will tell you which resource failed and why, as best as we can do using the whatever AWS gives us on the reason of the failure.
Is there an API that you can hit to Altostra that would give you the status of an individual deployment?
Basically, it will tell you that it's being deploying or deployed. So we try to like deflect most of the noise from AWS. I mean, we get updated on every possible resource that is being that something happens to. So we get to create and update and so forth. But we didn't want to just bother you. We wanted to be able to push and deploy. It's either deploying or not deploying. So, but if any resource.
Yeah. So sorry. Go ahead. I'll ask afterwards.
No, but if any resource fails, we'll tell you which resource failed, and that the entire thing failed.
Yeah. So what I was thinking about is if you have an API that lets you query deployment status within Altostra, the top level one of an individual deployment, that you could actually see that in CircleCI. You could essentially have a job that would like prod it for a couple of times, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes until the status has changed. And then that could terminate and show you, okay, deployment in Altostra has failed. But you would have to be running that CircleCI job for that time to wait for Altostra to continue, to terminate, basically.
So if we add it, if we add it in the config file, then I mean it might take a while.
Yeah. Like we would need to hit that API with your API keys and knowing what the ID of deployment is, and then basically just kind of maybe every 30 seconds ping it with a curl and see, okay, status is 200, which means maybe deployed, and status is 500, which means maybe failed, or whatever response you give. I mean, for example, that's something you could get around.
Okay, we'll add that.
I think we've answered this. Is any other questions by any chance? In which case, I think we are done. If there's no more questions in the next 30 seconds.
Counting.
Yeah, but this was super great presentation. Thank you so much, Yossi. It's a fabulous product, and I am a bit of a fan of serverless, and I will be playing with this Altostra tool very soon, just because I'm not the biggest fan of CloudFormation, to say the least.
I haven't met a lot of people who were. So.
And this looks like, yes, this looks like it's a lot easier to configure and obviously see it visually, which is so valuable. Yeah, in that, if that's over, I think can you go back to slides? I think we've got our details as well in there.
Yep.
So if folks are interested in reaching out to us, you can find us at either me at Zan@circleci.com and Yossi at Altostra.com. And yeah, it's been a pleasure hosting you. And yeah,